I still remember the warm yellow lights in that Hyatt ballroom like it was yesterday. That night was supposed to be a celebration, our daughter Natalie's graduation party. It was meant to honor all the years she worked her heart out, a moment where a family should come together, feel proud, and look forward to a bright future side by side. Claire, my wife, stood up in the middle of all the laughter and chatter. She held a champagne glass that sparkled under the chandelier. Everyone thought she was about to say something heartfelt to our daughter. Forks paused mid-air. A few guests even lifted their phones, ready to capture what they assumed would be a tearful mother-daughter tribute. But her next words dropped like a bomb. The entire room went dead silent. She said the two of us had mutually agreed to separate, that our marriage had lost its feelings long ago, and that today, right on Natalie's special day, was the right time to share this news with everyone. I didn't look at Claire. I looked at Natalie, and what I saw was a kid frozen in disbelief, slowly turning her head toward me. Her cap tilted slightly, her face pale like she'd just woken from a nightmare. I set my glass down, reached into my jacket, pulled out a cream-colored envelope I'd been holding onto. I placed it gently next to Claire's drink, and I said just one thing. I hope you'll be happy with your choice. No anger, no smile, and no staying behind. My name is Jonathan Miles. I'm 56 years old. And up until the moment Claire opened her mouth at that party, I truly believed that my family was the one thing I had done right in this life. But maybe I was wrong. If you've ever been through something similar, or know someone who has, I hope you'll stay and listen. And if you feel like it, a like or a quick comment would mean a lot. Claire started coming home late about a year before that party. At first, I chalked it up to work. She runs a brand consulting firm. Unexpected meetings, after-hours client dinners, all part of the deal. But then it started happening more and more. Some nights, she'd stroll in near midnight, saying she'd been with a high-potential client who might be a big investor. I asked casually a couple of times. Claire brushed it off, told me not to worry. Everything was under control. I nodded, didn't press. I wasn't looking for a fight. But then I started noticing the scent on her jacket. Not her usual perfume. Sometimes it was Chanel. Other times it was something strong and generic, the kind of smell hotels use in shared toiletries. Definitely not Claire's style. Then there was the night her phone lit up on the kitchen counter. A text popped up. Just a name. D. Before I could even glance at the message, she walked in, grabbed it quickly, and forced a tight smile. The next day, her passcode changed, and not long after that, she started bringing her phone into the bathroom. Still, I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't notice, but because I needed to be absolutely sure I wasn't making it up in my head. So I started paying closer attention to our joint bank account. A few strange transactions stood out. Withdrawals labeled under vague PR expenses with no receipts attached. Some of them split into smaller amounts, all transferred early Sunday mornings. I've been in finance for over 30 years. Random doesn't exist in this line of work. I bought myself a leather notebook, started logging dates, amounts, reasons Claire gave, and what I actually observed. I called it the Claire Ledger, not out of anger, just precision. The more I wrote, the calmer I felt. I never imagined I'd have to monitor my wife like an internal auditor tracking a company's shady finances. But deep down, I knew, if I didn't start with the numbers, I wouldn't stay clear-headed long enough to face whatever came next. I didn't catch the truth through some dramatic confrontation. I didn't hire a private investigator or snoop through her purse. It all started with one misfired email, just one click sent to the wrong inbox. Claire usually worked on her personal laptop, but sometimes she'd forward quick documents from her phone using our shared business email. And I still had full access to the desktop computer in the downstairs office. It was a quiet Saturday morning. I had logged on to check the quarterly tax reports when I noticed a new email. The sender was Claire. Subject line, weekend schedule. I figured it was just her work plan for the upcoming week, so I opened it. What I saw was a forwarded email. Claire must have sent it from her phone, maybe as a reminder to herself. But she didn't send it to her personal inbox. She accidentally sent it to our family account. the one I could still see. There was a PDF attachment. I opened it and started reading. Spa appointment at 10 a.m. Lunch reservation at the Archer Hotel, the same place Claire once said was too loud to go with me. A note underneath. Remember to bring the key. She said the model with the bay window is still available. I didn't know who she was, but as I scrolled down, I saw the original sender's signature line still intact. Derek Holland, Senior Designer, Brunswick Creative. And right below that was a photo, a selfie of the two of them in a model home. He had on a navy button-down salt and pepper hair, his arm resting casually around Claire's waist. She had her head tilted onto his shoulder. No need for explanations. Her eyes said everything. Then, at the very bottom, one line Claire had typed out, probably meant to send separately, but had forwarded by mistake. Can't wait to wake up next to you in this place. It already feels like ours. I just sat there, staring at the screen. No rage, no shock, just clarity. It was the final puzzle piece in a story I had already begun to piece together for over a year. I quietly saved everything, took screenshots of every word, every image, created a new folder on the desktop and named it Claire Truth. I didn't delete a thing. I wanted it all right where it was, as if I'd never seen it. Then I got up, poured myself a cup of coffee, and stood by the kitchen window. The backyard looked the same, grass freshly cut the day before, the maple tree dropping its leaves like it always did this time of year. And I thought to myself, maybe it's the familiarity that makes us stop paying attention. But not me. Not anymore. I started digging into whoever this Derek was. Claire had never mentioned him. No address, no obvious clues, just that one rushed signature at the bottom of the email. Derek Holland, Senior Designer, Brunswick Creative. I copied the company name, Brunswick Creative, and did a quick search. Turned out it was a high-end interior design firm based in Dallas. I clicked on their About Us page and scrolled through the team bios, then stopped on the third one. Derek Holland. Same face from the selfie. Salt and pepper hair, smug half-smile, gray turtleneck. The kind of man who clearly knows he's charming. I saved his photo. Then I pulled up LinkedIn. His profile was public. Derek had checked into Austin a few times over the last 6 months. One post stood out. He thanked Brunswick's brand collaboration partner in Central Texas, especially Claire for her faith and creativity. I screenshot the post, saved the entire caption word for word. That same week, Claire told me she'd be traveling to Dallas for 2 days to work with the Northern branding team. I pulled up her credit card statement. The transactions were right there in plain sight. Thompson Hotel Dallas, double room. Dinner for 2 at Monarch. Upscale, romantic, expensive. The timestamps were telling. Dinner was charged just under 20 minutes after hotel check-in. I took screenshots of every single charge, printed them, annotated each with the date, time, and amount. In the meantime, I created a burner Gmail account, got a second phone number, and used it to book a tour of the model home, the exact same one Claire had been photographed in with Derek. I just wanted to see what was real, and what was just a fantasy. The agent who showed me around was a woman named Carla. I told her I was Derek's brother. He was an interior designer, but had to miss the appointment, so he sent me to check out the place he and Claire were considering for their future home. Carla didn't even blink. Maybe she truly believed they were a couple. Maybe they acted like one. She smiled and said, "Oh, you're his brother. They're such a sweet couple. They really seem to click. Claire loves the unit with the bay window. Said if the next project gets approved, they plan to move in here together. Sweet couple. Move in together." I nodded, thanked her, walked to my car, and sat there for a long time without even turning the engine on. That night, Claire came home late again. I greeted her like I always did, asked if she was tired. She told me some vague story about a difficult client, then went on scrolling through her phone, like everything was fine. I went into the study, opened the Claire Truth folder, and added a new file. Carla recording. An audio clip I quietly recorded of Carla casually confirming everything I needed to know. That was the moment I realized. Claire wasn't being careful. She just never thought I'd look. But I work in finance. And in finance, we don't work off trust, we work off evidence. I didn't say a word to Claire. I still waited for her to come home each night. Still asked the usual questions. Nothing deep, nothing confrontational. I played the part of a distracted, easygoing husband. Sometimes I even acted a little forgetful. Claire thought I had no clue. She smiled, told stories about work, and even went back to wearing her usual perfume like nothing had changed. But inside, I had already shifted from documenting to preparing. I didn't want revenge. I wanted precision. And for that, I needed to know exactly where the law stood. We had signed a prenuptial agreement. It was Claire's idea, actually. Funny how she might have forgotten all about it. That conversation happened a week before the wedding. She was direct, said her parents had some real estate in Houston, and they wanted to make sure family assets wouldn't get caught up in any future divorce mess. I wasn't mad. I understood. I was a software engineer. She worked in branding. We were both self-sufficient, but I always knew her family was a bit traditional when it came to money. I smiled and signed without hesitation. Never thought twice about it. When you're in love, you don't picture a day when you'll be flipping through legal documents like an opponent in court. I folded the contract, put it in the safe with other things I never thought I'd need. Birth certificates, old medical records, handwritten letters from my parents during the war. Honestly, until I opened that email, I'd forgotten we even had a prenup. A week later, I took the agreement to my father's old lawyer, Mr. Mallory. He was retired now, but still consulted for a few close clients. I laid a copy on the table. He adjusted his reading glasses and silently flipped through every page. Didn't say a word for nearly 20 minutes. Finally, he nodded slowly and pointed to Section 14. It was clear as day. If either party is found to have committed adultery, backed by verifiable evidence, the other party has the right to retain full ownership of all marital property acquired during the marriage. That includes the house, investments, savings accounts, and any dividends. I sat still, gripping the handle of my briefcase a little tighter. Mallory looked up and said quietly, almost like a whisper, "You never thought you'd need this, did you?" I shook my head. Back then, I thought the only thing I'd ever need to protect was the woman who once loved me. Now, I need to protect myself and my daughter. I filed for divorce a few days before Natalie's graduation party. My lawyer submitted everything to the Travis County Court. It was clean, quiet, and meticulous. The morning of the party, I got the paperwork back, official, stamped, signed. That red seal felt like the final period at the end of a chapter I once thought would last forever. I'd also requested a freeze on our joint account that same morning. The motion was filed early, but the system wouldn't send the official notification until after full confirmation. That meant Claire wouldn't know. At least not that morning. Maybe not for another couple of days. I gathered everything, copies of the divorce filing, bank documentation, photos, emails, the prenup, and slipped them into a large cream-colored envelope. No name on it, no note inside. I didn't plan to use it, not unless I had to. I left it in the glove box of my car, sealed tight. That morning, while the whole house was getting ready for Natalie's big event at the hotel, I stayed calm, steady. It felt like any other morning before a big day. Shirts pressed, ties knotted. Claire stood in front of the mirror, touching up her makeup like the past year had never happened. Natalie was all smiles, bouncing around, unable to sit still, gripping her diploma like it was made of glass. I looked at her and all I could think was, "Please, Claire, don't do anything stupid tonight." I didn't want to ruin our daughter's party. Didn't want to stain what should have been one of the best days of her life. But I also wasn't going to stand there like a fool, waiting to be blindsided one more time. The party was held in the third-floor ballroom of the Hyatt, right in the heart of downtown Austin. Soft yellow lighting, white tablecloths, background music low enough to let conversations flow. Everything looked perfect. Natalie stood in the middle of her friends, beaming in her navy blue cap and gown. I had never seen her so happy. I was by the bar, talking to Claire's parents about Natalie's plans to study abroad. Claire moved from table to table, laughing, clinking glasses, playing the gracious host like nothing in her world was off script. I really thought she'd stay quiet until the end. That if there was even a sliver of rational thought left in her, she'd understand, at the very least, not to ruin this night. But I gave her too much credit. When the cake was brought out, Claire stood, champagne glass in hand. But her face didn't look like a proud mom about to thank the guests. It looked like an actress stepping into her final monologue. She raised her glass. Then she began to speak. At first, everyone assumed it was a toast for Natalie. Forks paused midair. A few phones came up, ready to record a touching family moment. But just a few sentences in, the whole room shifted. Claire said we had mutually agreed to separate, that the love in our marriage had faded long ago, and that tonight, yes, tonight, was the right time to share that truth with everyone. Someone dropped a fork. Someone else quietly lowered their phone. Natalie turned to look at me, confused, as if she'd misheard. Her graduation cap tilted off-center. Her eyes completely blank. I didn't look at Claire. I looked at my daughter, and the only thought in my mind was, she just destroyed the last thing that was still whole. I set my glass down, calmly told Claire to wait a moment, then walked out to the parking lot. I opened the glove box and took out the envelope I hadn't planned to use. Not tonight, not yet. I went back inside, walked straight to Claire, to place the envelope next to the champagne glass still in her hand. I leaned in, said one sentence, just loud enough for her to hear. I hope you'll be happy with your choice. Then I turned to Natalie, took her hand, told her I'd be waiting in the car, that if she wanted to leave early, all she had to do was text. I didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't need to make a scene, because a counterattack made of paper always echoes longer than any slammed fist on a table. Claire might have won her little moment in the spotlight, but I knew. I had just won the rest of my life. Natalie told me she'd stay a bit longer to say goodbye to her friends. I nodded, just told her not to take too long. When I pulled out of the hotel parking lot, the ballroom lights were still glowing behind me. Back home, I loosened my tie, changed shirts, and made myself a cup of tea like I always did. The kitchen was so quiet, I could hear the soft ticking of the kettle as it came to a boil. I tried not to think, just sat there, still, letting the silence settle in around me. A little while later, Natalie came home. She didn't say a word. No hello, no glance in my direction. Just walked past me like a cold breeze on a winter staircase. Light, fast, final. Her bedroom door shut so gently it made no sound at all. Claire came back almost an hour after that, but the woman who stepped into the house didn't look anything like the one at the party. The polite smile was gone. So was the carefully curated calm. In her hand was the cream-colored envelope I'd left behind. She walked straight into the living room and tossed it onto the coffee table, where it landed among a pile of magazines like something worthless. Her voice cracked as she asked what the hell this was supposed to mean. What was I trying to do? I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Still sitting where I was, I looked at her and said, "You chose to make noise where silence was needed. I did the opposite." She froze. For a second, it was like the air stopped moving. Then her voice turned bitter. She said I was being petty, that I'd deliberately picked Natalie's graduation night to strike back, that this was low. I didn't answer right away. I reached into my shirt pocket, took out my phone, opened the voice memos, and tapped a file labeled Carla Recording. The sound of the real estate agent played through the speaker, calm, casual, undeniable. She talked about Claire and Derek, about the bay window, about their plans to move in together if next year's project goes through. I watched Claire's face as the audio ended, said nothing, just let it sit in the air like a trap that had already sprung shut. Then I asked her, wasn't that what she wanted? Isn't everything going exactly how she planned? She didn't reply. Her expression turned to stone. I stood up, set the phone down on the table, and pointed toward the stairs. "What you need to do now," I said, "is go explain this to Natalie, because you're the one who ruined her night." I didn't wait for her reaction. Didn't care for another round of back and forth. I walked out to the backyard with my half-cold tea in hand, slid the glass door shut behind me, and left Claire standing alone in the brightly lit kitchen, a room full of light, but cold like a place no one lives in anymore. The next morning, the house felt quieter than usual, unnaturally quiet. I hadn't slept in our bedroom. I stayed in the guest room last night, so I didn't realize Claire had already left early. Maybe she spent the morning combing through the documents, heading off to find a lawyer, trying to sort through the mess she created. I walked upstairs and passed by Natalie's room. Her door was still shut tight. I thought about knocking, but then I didn't. Instead, I went back downstairs and made her a bowl of chicken soup. Simple, warm, something gentle. I brought it up, knocked softly once, then eased the door open. Natalie was lying on her side, facing the wall, the blanket pulled up to her chin. Her hair was a mess, and the pillow had that uneven dip, the kind left behind when someone's cried all night. I whispered her name, asked if she was awake. She didn't respond, but I saw her shoulder twitch slightly. I set the bowl on her desk and sat in the chair nearby. Told her it was okay. She didn't have to say anything if she wasn't ready. After a long pause, she finally turned her head. Her eyes were swollen, her voice raspy and barely above a whisper. She asked me why neither of us ever said anything. If things had been falling apart for that long, why didn't anyone tell her? Why did it have to be that day? Why that moment? The one she'd been looking forward to for 4 years. Why ruin it? I didn't answer right away. Then I said softly, "I'm sorry." I told her I never meant to keep her in the dark, that I had planned to tell her after the party. I wanted her to have one full, uninterrupted night, one last celebration where she got to be at the center of something happy, not stuck between two parents falling apart. But Claire didn't choose that. She decided to make her own announcement, her own moment. I didn't try to justify it. I didn't blame anyone. I just told the truth. Natalie said nothing. She turned back toward the wall. I stood up, didn't try to drag the moment out, just told her the soup was still warm, and if she felt up to it, she should eat a little. Then I left the room and closed the door behind me, quiet as possible. As I walked back down the stairs, a thought hit me. Some wounds can't be stitched up with an apology, but I'll still be here, every morning, waiting for that door to open again, slowly, if she lets it. 3 days before the court date, I got a text from Claire. It came in at 12:38 a.m. I read it under the dim light of my bedside lamp, just as I was about to close the book in my hands. She asked if we could talk, if maybe we could sit down and revisit the financial settlement before going to court. She added that, regardless of everything, we had been husband and wife for over 2 decades, and what happened, according to her, was just a moment of weakness, a lapse in judgment, a loss of control. She wrote that if I could look back with even a little compassion, maybe things didn't have to go this far. I read that message 3 times, not because I was conflicted, but because I wanted to be absolutely sure I hadn't misread a single word. I didn't respond right away. I put my phone down, walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water. By the time I came back, the screen had gone dark. The message sat there quietly, like it had never been sent at all. I replied the next morning. Just 1 sentence, no longer than a single line. "I'll let the court decide for me, just like you chose to announce everything in front of our daughter." I didn't add anything else, no explanations, no justifications, because at that point, this wasn't about reconciliation. It wasn't even about fairness. It was about damage control, and Claire, more than anyone, understood that. The morning of the hearing, it rained. Claire showed up with a woman in a charcoal gray blazer, metal-rimmed glasses, and a Saint Laurent handbag. I recognized her from brunches Claire used to host, probably one of those friends-turned-lawyers I never bothered to remember by name. I had arrived early, sat in the far end of the courtroom bench. With me was Mr. Murray, my father's former lawyer. He was the one who'd looked over the prenup Claire had me sign a week before the wedding. Back then, I hadn't thought twice about it. I signed it thinking I had nothing to lose. Now? Different story. Inside the courtroom, there were no raised voices, no objections, no drama. Everything unfolded in a calm, sterile tone, and maybe that's what made it all hit so hard. The court upheld the full validity of the prenuptial agreement. The infidelity clause remained intact. Based on its terms, I was awarded full ownership of the house, 80% of our investment accounts, the car, and most of the shares in our joint business. Claire wasn't entitled to any redistribution of assets acquired before her breach of the agreement. She sat still, hands folded in her lap. Her face gave nothing away, but her lips were pressed into a pale, rigid line. Her lawyer kept her eyes on the file in front of her and didn't say a word. I didn't look at either of them. I looked at the window instead, where the light filtered through the rain-slicked glass like a quiet reminder. Everything we once shared had now been divided with legal clarity. The hearing ended at exactly 10:17 a.m. That date, by chance or irony, just so happened to be our 23rd wedding anniversary. I walked out of the courthouse without saying a word to Claire. No blame, no satisfaction, just closure, written on paper, sealed by law, and executed with the kind of quiet planning I never thought I'd need. After the court ruling, I never saw Claire again. But a few weeks later, while finalizing the ownership transfer paperwork, my lawyer forwarded me Claire's final asset declaration. One thing stood out. There was no mention of the Travis Heights house, the property her parents had passed down to her long before we ever got married. I was a little surprised, but since it was classified as separate property, it wasn't mine to question. It wasn't until a friend of mine in real estate casually brought something up that the pieces started falling into place. Claire had sold that house about a month before Natalie's graduation. The proceeds, substantial, were used to invest in a boutique design project Derek was supposedly launching in South Austin. She was also listed as the person who put down the deposit for a model condo, the same one with the bay window, the same one they once called the start of their new life together. But Derek didn't stick around long enough to watch it all fall apart. He disappeared right after the court date. No explanation. Not even a text. The project never broke ground. The developer went radio silent. The deposit? Non-refundable. And since everything had been done through handshake deals, no contracts, no paperwork, no one was legally bound to reimburse Claire for anything. Claire didn't lose her assets because of me. She lost them chasing the person she thought was her way out. And maybe the only thing I genuinely feel sorry for is that she burned her last financial bridge to build one that was never even real. After the court hearing, Claire was the first to move out. I stayed in the house the court had officially awarded to me. Natalie didn't say much during that time, but when Claire called and asked if she wanted to come live with her, Natalie just shook her head. No arguments, no convincing, no drama. She simply stayed, and I didn't press her about it. A few months later, I moved into a small cabin near Lake Travis, not too far from the city, close enough that Natalie could visit on weekends. I didn't bring much with me, just my coffee maker, a few old notebooks, and a hard drive full of everything I'd documented during the divorce. I started writing. Not a book, just a blog. I called it Divorced After 50. No shame, no surrender. I never expected anyone to read it, but then one day a man from Montana emailed me to say thanks. He wrote, "Because of you, I realized I'm still worth something." I saved that email. Never deleted it. Didn't even reply. Just kept it. One early autumn afternoon, Natalie brewed some tea and brought it out to the back porch. We sat there together, watching the lake. Neither of us said a word for a long while. Then she turned to me, her voice soft, like the steam just rising off her cup. She said, "I'm proud of you, Dad, for never losing yourself, even when someone else had already given up on you." I nodded, didn't look at her, just gave her hand a quiet squeeze. And in that moment, I knew. I had just reclaimed the one thing I nearly lost, my daughter's trust. Thank you for spending your time here. If this story spoke to you, feel free to like, subscribe, or share a few thoughts in the comments. I'm always grateful for the company.